This is a story about pure sports cars. The aspirational, for most people, kind of sports cars. The cars that you just want. You don't need them. We've got the new BMW Z4 and the Porsche 718 Boxster. You might actually say, well, why didn't you bring the Supra?
Both the Z4 and the Supra are targeting Porsche directly. They're not even apologizing for it. Supra is going for the Cayman, BMW is going for the Boxster. And they've been making an alternative for every generation, but this one is the most focused, directly aimed at the Porsche Boxster.
You're watching Everyday Driver. We make a TV show, podcast,
and YouTube channels dedicated to great cars, driving adventures, and helping you find a car you'll love.
subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss a thing.
BMW is announcing that it's going to reduce its immense product line to, of course, cut costs, and the Z4 is on the chopping block. What's interesting and sad about that reality is it just showed up. It's a fairly new car, and they're already saying, we're done, no more of that.
They are investing heavily in electric and plug-in EVs. And also, do you think BMW builds real, true sports cars by the definition? I mean, they built fast cars, don't get me wrong. The M division is astounding. And they've built class leaders and full-on race cars, but they build them out of sedans and coupes. Besides the Z1 and the Z8, and also the M1 from back in the 80s, what in BMW's portfolio is a true purpose-built sports car?
You may remember that the Z3 was originally introduced in the James Bond film GoldenEye. That was replaced with the BMW Z4 in the early 2000s, starting in 2003. This is the third generation. This Z4 starts at about $50,000. This one spec'd like this. This is a press car special. It's almost 64 grand. What's interesting is that puts it only about $3,000 less than the Boxster, so these are right in the exact same budget area. The styling on the Z4 has been somewhat controversial. It does have a great presence when you see it in person, especially in a nice color like this red. It took me a while to figure out what the front end looks like. I finally landed on it. The front of the Z4 looks like a whale shark.
I'm in love with this car. It looks modern, purposeful. It's lower, it's wider. Look at it dead on from the back. It sits right. There's almost no surface that is left untouched. It needs some graphic breakup. There's just little touches of edgy. That's the theme of the car, and it continues into the interior, where the surfaces, the shapes feel pretty fresh.
Compared to the Boxster, this interior does feel a bit more upscale. It's interesting that these cars are so close in price because the BMW does feel like the more modern, right now interior. This entire gauge cluster here is just one big screen. It does have the speedometer going up all around the left side in an arc and the RPM going the opposite direction up the right side. That makes it very visually symmetrical, but it takes a little bit of getting used to. You've got a lot of information available to you around all your normal speed and RPM. These seats are excellent. BMW's always done very good seats, and you have a really good seating position. Everything ergonomically is excellent, but I find myself sitting very low in the car and almost feeling swallowed by it. The car seems to rise up so far past you.
What is it about every car manufacturer comparing their cars to Porsche? Could it be the steeped in race history and the fact that they've done sports cars for so long? But it seems like Porsches are always a reward for their buyer.
This is a base Porsche 718 Boxster. I mean a base Porsche 718 Boxster. This one total costs 67 grand. It essentially is, just give me a Boxster with the base engine. Oh, I'd like nice wheels. I think nicely powered seats would be good, and I'm done. That's all it has. There's no active stability management. There's no special differentials. This is base Porsche Boxster. The good news is it's similarly priced to that Z4.
I like it because it's classic looking. Don't get me wrong, the Z4 is modern and beautiful and edgy, but this is gonna last a long time. Every other surface around the car has something to do with the function. The doors, where they blend into the intakes on the sides of the car, well, that's function. And then how the lines wrap for the license tag, and then the corner markers. It's the slightly modernized version of what will look good for a long time. And that's a good thing, because when everybody stops making these cars and they're just electric everything, Nobody's going to care about the lack of infotainment. It's just clean. One button does one thing.
Because this is a base no-frills Boxster, this is an incredibly simple interior. And the materials, as we've said in the 718 before, they look very similar to the same things you get in the GTI. This does feel like there's been corporate price saving here. That isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's still a very nice interior, but the Z4 beats it on looking more modern and feeling more luxurious. Porsche does make great seats, though.
Everyday Driver is brought to you by Covercraft. Use the code EVERYDAY for 10% off your order.
Both these cars are 4-cylinders with single turbos. And you might ask, why base models in these cars? Well, it keeps the cost down, relatively speaking, and it also keeps the power down. And that means it puts the onus on you as a driver to keep your speed up. You don't get to cheat on a track or cheat on a canyon road by flattening your right foot. You've got to hold your momentum, and it actually brings out more of what the chassis is designed to do. We're in the 30i, which is the low-power model in the States. But keep in mind, there is a 20i available in Japan and Europe and elsewhere in the world that BMW has announced will have a manual transmission. Now, you might think, I'm never buying a 4-cylinder, especially if I'm buying a BMW. Well, there's good reason to. Not only is it less money, it makes an astounding amount of power.
Hands down, the biggest surprise for me with this Z4 is the power delivery. Honestly, when I read that it was down 50 horsepower from the Boxster, I really thought, is the Boxster just going to walk away from the Z4? And it's actually the opposite. This 4-cylinder feels barely restrained almost all the time.
The 20i and the 30i are both 4-cylinders. The 30i is kind of a little bit more tuned up version of the 20i. But then the M40i is coming, which is a 3-liter, but this car is only a 2-liter and it's the 30i. Are you confused yet? Because I am.
You're still dealing with a 4-cylinder sports car here. It isn't a huge powerhouse in a world where 400 horsepower isn't that big deal anymore. 255 with 295 pound-feet of torque feels kind of cute. But when you drive it, then it changes your mind. While the Boxster can beat this in a standing start 0 to 60, the way you'll probably use this car is be rolling along at 30 or 40 and suddenly have to hit the gas, get past somebody to get on the freeway, or to work your way around somebody. In all of those scenarios, the BMW has more power waiting for you.
It's really, really quick. It doesn't seem like this car would move. And you think 4-cylinder, why would I ever get the 4-cylinder? I'll save my money. This car is already almost $64,000. But what's great is it's fully loaded, unlike the Boxster. This has the M Sport package, it has the premium package, the executive package with all the lighting, and it also has the track package with the M Sport diff and the upgraded brakes.
BMW has been one of the best at really taking the ubiquitous 8-speed ZF automatic transmission and refining it to feel like a dual clutch. If you need dual clutch shift speeds, it can do it. If you want it to act like a silky smooth automatic, it's fine with that too.
The feeling of the dual clutch is so close to this, I can see why BMW decided to not even go there. They're tuning their transmissions so well now, they're getting that feeling out of a normal automatic.
Do I want a manual transmission? Of course I do. But this automatic is about as fast a delivery as you're going to get out of anything. You don't need faster than this, and it's going to work like a normal automatic when you're sitting in stop and go. The driveline, the power of this car, and the way it puts it down is a huge victory and is a step beyond the Boxster. Now, if you get the Boxster S, you get a bigger engine. You get a 2.5-liter flat 4. But this is the 2-liter flat 4, so it is the same size engine as that BMW Z4. This base Boxster, because of the turbo, now has 300 horsepower, which is almost as much as the prior generation S. The big change here is 35% more torque. At 280 pound-feet of torque, it's just barely less than that Z4, but that is a huge change in power delivery and torque over the Boxster prior. A lot of work was done by Porsche to try to make this turbo engine have the same personality and naturally aspirated feel of their prior great flat 6 engines. They've gotten close. It doesn't run out of grunt right at the last couple thousand RPM. This continues to pull all the way to redline. That's something that they chased and they succeeded. The problem is that BMW Z4 just feels more powerful underfoot all the time when you randomly need it.
So what does the sport button do if there's no, adaptive suspension? You instantly add 5 PSI at least of boost. That's because Porsche shuts off the wastegate, they crack open the throttle valve just slightly, and they reduce the timing angle all in an effort to keep boost. This button might as well be labeled boost. Love that. I love playing with the turbo lag. It's a rare treat that you get to do that in a car anymore. It seems like it's a detriment, but it is not. It is a delight.
I'm waiting, I'm waiting, I'm waiting, I'm waiting. Boost! Except don't make it crackle and pop at me, because that's not fun. You just take a bad voice and add an annoying laugh. Ugh. No, don't crackle. I can't do sport. I like the preload turbo thing, but I can't do sport because I don't want to hear it crackle.
I like the engine. I love the engine. It's not just because I'm a Porsche enthusiast. It's because it's steeped in history. It's the world's best team, steeped in the history of... Oh, never mind. The great thing is you can buy this car with a manual. I think you'll always be able to buy a Porsche with a manual unless they go, of course, fully electric. But I think they're gonna stick to this recipe. It's just over 3,000 pounds. It's small, it's lightweight, mid-engine configuration. I'm so used to the power on, throttle on to the corners to settle the car. It's brilliant.
Of course, this car is more engaging because it has a stick shift. I'm not going to give it extra points for that. I wish BMW would bring a manual transmission to the Z4, but I'm not going to give this bonus points. I do like it, though. Manuals are just better. They're just more fun.
Everyday Driver is brought to you by Griot's Garage. Use the code EVERYDAY for 10% off your order.
So in benchmarking this car, BMW really studied the Boxster hard. What's interesting about this car is it is a front mid-engine car. The engine might be a few millimeters past the front axle. It is nearly perfect front to rear and side to side weight balance.
They have almost the exact same wheelbase. It's off by 0.2 of an inch. And also they made it significantly stiffer than this car has been prior. Having that super stiff chassis means that the cornering on this is very direct and really precise. It dives into a corner and there's very little body roll. Wow, this car's stiff.
That's what's so surprising about the new Z4 is that it seems like, well, they're just going after the cruiser convertible market, and that's the only people who will buy it, is just folks who will cruise around in it. It's begging you to beat on this car, kind of like you're track driving. It's a car that's kind of asking for it. You can come in so hot to a corner, hit downshift, come on, throw down, there we go. The inputs make you feel like you're on it.
There's very little body roll here. Now, that's the upside of having this really stiff chassis and suspension. The downside, of course, is you'll probably feel beat up on, even in comfort mode.
It kind of thuds, honestly, over expansion joints, freeway bumps, but I do like that it's suited more towards sportier driving like this.
The power makes this BMW feel lighter than it is, but at nearly 3,300 pounds, it's about 250, almost 300 pounds heavier than the Boxster, and you can feel that. But we're in a world of electronic steering racks now, and as a result, they've lost most of their feel, and BMW, who used to have excellent steering feel, it's gone. It's really not here in this car. BMW has created a kind of fake heavy steering feel that harkens back to their really good hydraulic feel. That is their new signature thing. It's precise, it goes where I point it, but the tires, they've got nothing to say. They've gone mute.
This car, the base model, has no Porsche active suspension management. It does not have the mechanical diff, no sport chrono, no carbon ceramic brakes, no sport exhaust. It is pure. What I love about the dynamics of this car being stripped down like it is at $67,000 is the fact that it feels very analog, despite the electromechanical steering. It has this modern yet old school analog feel to it.
Like the BMW, this has a variable steering ratio, pretty similar to the BMW. However, this actually has some feel. You have a sense of pressure from the tires. You have a sense of tension in the steering rack when you weight the front wheels that the BMW just can't deliver. The Boxster and Cayman have long been one of the best mid-engine cars to drive. They're forgiving, but they still give that fantastic mid-engine rotation. This 718 has lost none of that, and when you drive it right after the Z4, this feels like the lighter, crisper, more agile car. Trying to get mid-engine quality rotation out of a front-engine car is essentially impossible. This car just rotates better.
This steering rack is adopted from the 911 Turbo, which is a good thing. Crispy, tight, everything about it is tight. Yeah, you can feel it's convertible. It's just a tiny bit of wiggle, but nothing bad.
I'm not even touching the manual transmission. I'm not more engaged in this car because it's a manual. I like the manual, that helps. But I'm just talking handling. I'm not even touching the manual transmission, and this is more fun to drive.
I'm surprised that BMW has gone this far with the car. I didn't expect a car this frantic. I expected a lazier car, to be honest.
This Z4 is a great daily car. It is a great whatever I need to do in life car. It's not a superb sports car though. With the top up, this Z4 actually comes to almost coupe levels of sound deadening. It's really impressive. The great job they've done at making this a grand tourer that can just handle, you want to drive cross country, it's raining out, you're fine.
What driving the Boxster has done is take me back, searching for that analog driving experience. And I think Porsche has done exactly that in a modern car.
Like the Miata, this Boxster has long been one of the best convertibles you can buy. It delivers on all the things you hope a convertible will feel like. BMW's picked quite a task for themselves. I mean, look, the Z4 has always been a Boxster competitor, but in this generation, look, they even shortened the wheelbase and said, we're going after the Boxster. That's hard.
Although I think they did the right thing by challenging Porsche, because ultimately they've made a better car for themselves.
Yes, they have.
The problem is, I feel like these cars in the future aren't going to reappear like we've got them now, the pure driving experience like we've got them now. So I come down to the thought, do I have to choose? Do I have to make an actual
Sorry, but yeah, we really
one
should here. We really
two,
should say there's a better, yeah.
I feel like at this point, you could go down the list. You could choose this handling from the Porsche, that power from the BMW.
Yeah,
you could go back and forth endlessly, but ultimately, what it does is come down to architecture. The placement of the engine in the car. They're different, but they're so similar everywhere else.
Yes, and you've heard me say it already. The problem the BMW has is it's almost impossible to compete with a really good mid-engine car when you get to just handling dynamics. That's where this car wins, and as a result, I have to say it, the more I drove the Z4, the more I thought, this is really, really well done.
It is.
But the Boxster wins.
So you're going
The Boxster wins, I'm sorry, yes.
It does. I'm faster in the Boxster. I connect with it more.
Yes, definitely. And even without the manual transmission, I connect more here.
Yeah, I mean, we know the manual is available elsewhere on the planet.
Yeah,
Maybe one day it'll come. Maybe it'll happen. But this car is so good. Could we do his and hers in the garage? Could we get both? They're the same car. They take up the same amount of space.
Yeah, that's true. All right.
I'm with you on the Boxster.
I think the Z4 may be the better travel car, but if you're driving a back road, the Porsche wins.
You can cruise in it, but it feels like it always wants to be feet on, and I kind of like that feeling. I mean, the overarching thought, though, is will we continue to get sports cars like these in the future?
The Boxster handles better. The Boxster feels lighter on its feet. This has the better power, and I think if you were going to cruise or drive cross country, you'd rather be here. The ride is so rough, though. Why is the ride this rough?
What's crazy is the Boxster feels like an old school driving experience combined with a modern car. And despite how much I like the Z4 and how good it is, I'm faster in the Boxster.
Honestly, I have very little to say bad about the Z4. It's a great convertible. It's an excellent car, but the Boxster is the one I want to keep driving. so it has to win.